before I did lots of research on this, my view was always, I'm not going to have a state pension. It will have disappeared by then. But then I read all of the DWP papers around the creation of auto-enrollment. And when they brought that in, and everything is basically on the basis of an 8% contribution through auto-enrollment plus state pension, we think people will get here. It seems that our system assumes that everyone will have a state pension of some sort long term.
Yeah, because the risk is if you pull back the curtain and say, well, maybe you won't get a state pension, then everything cascades away from that. So within those modelling assumptions, the civil servants would have been told, assume everyone's going to get their state pension, because if you don't assume that, then we just open this can of worms, right? And we don't want
Ponzi dies.
Right, the Ponzi dies. We don't want to address that. So they would have baked into their assumptions, yes, everybody's going to get their state pension. And I've always been pretty comfortable that the sustainability of the state pension can be adjusted over time by things like we currently have the triple lock, and that means that it's being very generously inflation proofed over time. Well, we could always switch that off, or we could adjust the age at which people get their state pension. So a couple of things there. One is because of the demographics, and we talked about the demographics last time I was here, that's getting increasingly problematic. The fact the fertility rate keeps going down. Every year, look, we're making fewer babies, and we can to some extent plug the gap with immigration. But there are issues with all of that. And the Ponzi scheme only works if you've got a reasonably stable population. And what we have now is all the baby boomers and the Gen X moving towards retirement, and smaller cohorts of the population coming through underneath. And so the taxpayers of tomorrow have to sustain an ever-increasing burden of retired people in the future. So that's a problem. So I'm less confident today about the sustainability of the state pension than I have been in the past. I think there will always be a state pension, but you guys, you youngsters sitting across the table from me, you might not get it until you're in your 70s, right? So things may have to shift. And I think that's a conversation that keeps getting kicked down the road. The state pension is massively expensive. After the NHS, it's right up there. It's £125 billion a year, that order of government expenditure. And it's getting more and more expensive all the time because of the ageing of the population. So yes, there's this assumption you're going to get a state pension. And for now, we'll just maintain this polite fiction, almost this assumption that the state pension is still going to be there. I do worry about the sustainability of it in the long term.
The problem is, though, it's a big amount of money in terms of the total retirement pot. So if I want 40k a year in income, or 33, let's say, the state pension gets me a third of that.
Yes. And
that means that when I run my calculations, because if we're saying to someone they need to save 20% of their gross income, and there's an assumption of a state pension, they are saving towards that through national insurance contributions or, tax.
Yes.
They're paying a tax burden on the basis that if I pay their pension today, someone will pay mine in the future. And if that promise is broken, you're basically saying to people, they need to find another third of their savings. So how do me and T sit here and plan around that?
So for now, you just kind of have to assume it will be there broadly. And this is why I made the point the assumptions will be wrong. This is another of the assumptions that will be wrong. So the nature of the state pension will evolve in the decades to come between your age now and when you get to retirement. That's going to happen. It might be that you get it later. It might become less generous through sort of an adjustment to the inflation proofing. There may be an element of means testing, possibly, though that doesn't actually save a huge amount of money. So if you guys are super successful in your business and you're millionaires, well, maybe the government in the future will come along and say, we're going to give you a bit less of the state pension, or we'll tax you more to offset that. So things will change, but at the moment, more than half the retired population relies on the state pension for more than half their retirement income, right? So it's a hugely important pillar of people's retirement incomes. You can't just whip that away overnight. So things will change, but they'll change slowly.
This was a clip from our episode with pensions guru and general legend Tom McPhail. To watch the full episode, click right here.